Hey, this is going to be a video, actually a series of videos about Hunter x Hunter, the seminal masterpiece by Yoshihiro Togashi. Now, I wasn't really planning on doing this series, and it will be a series, but with the news today that Hunter x Hunter is finally coming back from hiatus on October 7th, which is coming up, I decided, well, I had said before when it eventually would resume serialization that I would reread the series. And now that's happened, so I'm planning if I do at least a volume a day, I should be. Mind my voice, by the way, it's a little sore. But if I do at least a volume a day, I should be caught up by then. So, and I figured, well, like I did with my One Piece videos, I could do sort of vlogs about my experience reading it. But unlike One Piece, which those were 3 volumes of video, and those were my first time, and I was totally blind. This is a reread. I consider myself kind of an expert on this series. It's one of my most cherished series of all, and I wanted to kind of look at it with more of an analytical lens. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm looking at Volume 1 of Hunter x Hunter. Now, I'm going to try to keep spoilers to a minimum. I don't really want to give key plot points away. What I will do is if there are motifs or themes that I recognize that are developed later on, I'll kind of comment on them. So it's like light spoilers, I guess. If you want to be safe, just click away. If you've never experienced Hunter x Hunter, please do so. It is well worth your time. Even if it doesn't end, guys, it is such an incredible journey. And plus, the 2011 anime by Madhouse, while I have gripes with it, is a very solid adaptation, and it has kind of its own ending. So, if that sense of finality is a problem for you, well, there you go, right? But it's continuing. I'm very excited because this arc is fantastic. But we're going all the way back to the beginning. I believe this started in, fact check myself, okay, 98. I thought it was 99 for a moment. It's a good thing I fact checked. Anyways, it is a great start. It's an incredible start, actually. And actually, having reread it now, or at least reread this volume, I kind of have a newfound appreciation for the beginning of this arc because, and for the series as a whole, because Togashi is very subtle with his character and world building, and it's actually present in these 8 chapters. I don't have my physical copy on me. I stored all of my volumes in my classroom because, during lunch I can read them. And plus, it's on the Shonen Jump app anyway, so if you want to read it officially, you can do that. I'm not a paid shill. I'm just saying you can do that. But anyways, this series starts with the Hunter exam arc, which is kind of your typical training slash exam arcs, kind of like the Chunin exams in Naruto. But even with this, Togashi really makes it his own. And something I really appreciate about Hunter x Hunter is how drastically different each arc feels. And they're kind of different genres, right? Like you have this, which is your standard, well done shonen. And then you have the Phantom Troop York New City arc, which is just this like sprawling crime epic, kind of like mafia story. Then you have the Greed Island arc, which is almost an isekai, not quite, but it's like it turns into a death slash card game, and it's very cool actually. And then obviously you have the Chimera Ant invasion, where the series takes a very geopolitical turn, and it becomes very it delves into moral relativism. Is that the right way you pronounce it? I don't know. And then, of course, you have the current arc, the Succession War, which is kind of like Agatha Christie with Nen and Nen Beast and this insane, crazy family. It's a little like Umineko When They Cry of Hunter x Hunter. And all of this is just building up to the Dark Continent, which is kind of like the real start of the series. And I really hope we can see it in my lifetime, or in any lifetime, really. It just depends on Togashi's health. Well, anyways, going back to Volume 1, we begin with Gon on, I believe it's Whale Island, and right off the bat, he knows exactly what he wants to be. He wants to be a hunter, just like his dad. And his dad Gin is a character that will remain very much a mystery throughout a vast majority of the series, and even now, where we kind of know more about him, it's still very surface level, and it's more like we always hear impressions of him from people that were maybe close to him, or maybe they just brushed past him. It's very interesting way to develop a character without so much the character speaking for themselves. But it's very important for Gon Freaks' character because he doesn't know much about his dad, but he knows he's a hunter. And he will be a hunter just like him. And we're constantly told throughout this beginning that Gon is special, that Gon exhibits a lot of the traits that made Ging such a great hunter. He's actually a tier 3 hunter, or he's supposed to be a tier 3 hunter, but he can't bother with the paperwork. And that's pretty typical for a shonen where you kind of just hype up your protagonist. But Togashi is very conscious of tropes, and he's constantly subverting them in Hunter x Hunter. And even this early on, even though it's not apparent in this first entire arc, really, he is setting the seeds of subversion for Gon Freaks because ultimately Gon is one of the least important characters in this whole story. He contributes very little. He does actually not really much compared to especially like Kurapika, and especially with the current arc right now, Kurapika is very much the center, and even Leorio has a lot of maybe not screen presence, but he has presence in the world, and Gon is not really that. So it's very interesting that we get this traditional shonen setup with him, and that's eventually going to break. And that's something that Togashi is very good at, is giving us this central cast of characters very quickly. In this entire volume, we get all of the major characters, well, like the main characters of Hunter x Hunter. We get them all. We get Gon, Killua, Leorio, and Kurapika. That's like your quartet, right? But we know very little about them, and what we know about them, it just kind of they come off as almost one dimensional. Like Leorio is, oh, that's the greedy guy. Kurapika has this lust for revenge. Why? Well, we don't know yet exactly. We know that his clan was killed off by this group called the Phantom Troop, but we just know that because Kurapika gave that in an exposition. Then you have Killua, who is very powerful and is a very important character, but he comes off as just almost like a punk. He's kind of doing this all for fun, and he has these powers, sort of. I'll get to that later. I'm just getting a little ahead of myself. I just really like that the teases we get of these characters, they are important parts of them, but it's not the whole story. But it's very easy to read into it as just, oh, this is their thing, right? Like, I love One Piece, but One Piece is, for a while, very one-dimensional with its characters of Sanji, who he's the horny one that cooks really well, Usopp, who's the coward, you know? And that's a constant throughout the series. They don't really change. You learn more about them, but they don't really change. The Hunter x Hunter characters, you learn more about them, and they change. Well, maybe not Gon as much as the others, but still, there is room for growth. Just like with the world, we see very little of the world in this first volume, but it's such a weird glimpse of the world because it's very fantastical, but it's also very grounded, and it's insanely grand scale also, because we're told these very almost exaggerated numbers that, like, basically millions try to be hunters, and it's like a 1 in like 300,000 chance that you can become a hunter. And it's just, they make the hunter exam so obtuse and difficult because that many people are always trying, and it makes for a very entertaining, unconventional sort of exam arc. So like, there are many preliminary exams before the real kind of exam begins that are just kind of weeding out the weak. My favorite of which is this old lady who gives kind of a trolley problem, where she asks, you're in this situation and you have to choose, do you save your mother or do you save your loved one? So someone in front of them goes, I save my mother because I can always have another loved one. She lets him pass. And so then it's our main group, but Leorio doesn't want to answer, and he says this is a stupid question. Like, why would we have to choose? I would want to save both. And he's actually about to attack this old lady, but Kurapika stops him and is like, hey, we passed. She said you had to say one or the other, but she didn't say you could say nothing, which is what they did. And so they win, and they pass. And it turns out that the guy who won actually went into a trap, basically. But in this moment, Gon has such a very mature thought where he says, he gets kind of mad, and he's like, well, this is okay for a hypothetical situation, but what if we as hunters are actually forced into this situation, into this trolley problem? Then what do we do? And no one really has an answer for that, and then they just kind of move on. It's very profound, especially later on in the series, like especially the Chimera Ant invasion is very much a large trolley problem, and you get into the moral relevantism, you get into multifaceted antagonists, and you start in the kind of disillusionment of world power that happens in the Chimera Ant arc, and those seeds are, in a way, they're sown here with Gon expressing that dissatisfaction of this arbitrary binary of, well, you have this choice, oh, but you could choose not to choose. But you have to choose, and that's the problem with life, right? So I think it's a very profound early moment. Then they're in this room, and there's hundreds of hunters. And, oh, actually, before that, you also have this moment where they have to fight these shape-shifting foxes. But Gon chooses not to fight, and he actually recognizes almost like the humanity in them. He's able to tell them apart, and they're like, wow, like no one's done this before, of being able to actually like distinguish between us. Most people see us as just animals or monsters, and it's been said in the series at this point that Gin was had an affinity with animals, and we've seen that Gon has that too with the fox that he bonded with the help of Kite. Well, by the way, Kite, I believe it's been a while, that Kite's first appearance here is cut from the anime, which is very shocking because Kite comes back and is a major character, and so to cut this very chapter 1 basically interaction with Gon is kind of stupid, especially given Kite's proximity to Gin. He's a very important character to Gon. So that scene's great, but anyways, going back to the Hunter exam, that scene of Gon seeing past the arbitrary morality of men and monsters. Again, that is the entire point of the Chimera Ant invasion. So again, it's like all of these themes are already being set up, and this is going to be a constant throughout the series that's like just constantly building on itself, while it reinvents itself while never feeling like it's a weird left turn. It feels like, oh, this is a logical next part of this world, basically. And that's what makes Hunter x Hunter very special to me. It's not like One Piece, and again, I love One Piece. I like One Piece more than Hunter x Hunter, in fact. But in One Piece, it's like you go to island, and they might as well be separate, like separate worlds. And I understand that's the idea because the world is just so isolated, and that makes sense. But in Hunter x Hunter, it's like this world is so fleshed out and huge. I mean, the Dark Continent is unbelievably massive, and we haven't even seen it yet, you know? So, this is so bad for my voice. But anyways, I wanted to also say that, so after all that, when they actually make it to the real kind of beginning of the exam, we meet Tompa, who I actually think is kind of an underrated character. He's like, oh yeah, this is my 35th time. I've been trying since I was like 10 or something to be a hunter. And yeah, it's like a funny moment, but it's also like, wow, like, that's so sad. And he's very petty because he has this poisoned, or he has like laxatives, this soda that he tries to give to weed out the competition. Um, and while that's seen as a bad thing, obviously, in a way it's kind of good because he is doing that. He is weeding out the weak. So like it's almost like he's unconsciously a part of the exam itself. And I think that just kind of happens when you have been rejected so hard from the system that you end up kind of falling into it, almost like a living example of why you are not making it, you know. And here we are introduced to Killua, and Killua downs like five of them, and feels nothing. And Killua is like, "Oh yeah, I've built up an immunity for myself against all toxins," and that could seem as sort of like as like an OC overpowered cop out, but it's a tease of Killua's character. There's more to this guy, and that's again, it's thought out already. The seeds are planted, and it's so great. And then again, you have like the loosey goosey nature of the Hunter exam, where Killua brings a skateboard, and this first big challenge for these Hunter candidates is to keep up with, I forgot, Stanats, something like that. The mustache guy who's constantly walking. You need to keep up with him. And Killua whips out the skateboard, and it's like, well, they didn't say you couldn't bring a skateboard, right? So it's like thinking outside the box is very important for a Hunter, and it's established very well with Killua. So that scene's very fun, and then they make it to the Great Plains, and it's like, okay, this is it, essentially. But this is a world of deceit, and immediately it's like we're treated to deceit, and we're treated like the cruelness of this world, where this guy's defeated and is like pecked alive by like bird creatures. It's very crazy. And we meet Hisoka, who is a very multi-layered character. I mean, he can, like, he's very meaned on, and he seems just weird, but he's a very complex and actually fantastically written character. And here it's like he just comes off as a freak, as a force of chaos, because he just is like eliminating the competition willy-nilly, and he's just kind of getting away with it. And then he kind of drops the Hunter exam just to focus on Gon, because he feels this fighting spirit in Gon, and it's kind of giving Hisoka more of a purpose. So he's like, screw being a Hunter, I want to focus on this. And that's where the volume ends, just right with the introduction of Hisoka, who is just very much like, in a way, feels similar to Gambit from X-Men, with the way he could put this power into especially cards. But it's one of the coolest Nens, and actually at this point we don't even know what Nen is. So the fact that we're kind of, again, Togashi is like drip feeding this information to us without us even knowing it, and it's so cool. I mean, we're gonna learn pretty quickly what Nen is, but to see it this early is just so cool, and it's just, again, it's just incredible what he can do, and it never feels like an ass pull. Everything is always building upon itself. Um, there's something else I wanted to say is, again, with like the dichotomy of morals, we see that with the reasons why Leorio and Kurapika, they both want to be hunters. Leorio just wanting money. Kurapika, again, has this insatiable lust for revenge. So it's like you have Leorio, who's this capitalistic, consumerist mindset, and you have Kurapika, who's this like fanatic, basically. And there's this line I love from Kurapika where he says something like, "My only fear is that my lust for vengeance will die," or something like that. It's like, wow, that's metal. But anyways, that's all for right now. Again, that's just one volume. I don't know if I'm gonna stick with one volume. We'll see. But this series means a lot to me, and I like the opportunity to kind of dive in a little deeper, because I think it does warrant that. Actually, I mean, you could think I'm maybe reading too much into it. I don't care. This series means so much to me, and I'm so happy that it's coming back. You know, I never give up hope, and my prayers go out to Togashi, and I really hope he can just finish this series, man. Just as long as it doesn't kill him, you know, because I don't want that. All right, that's all. We'll see if I upload tomorrow.